And I see Jerry Ferris sitting here with some little friends, Marianne Mylod.
Hi.
And Jesse.
Hi.
He's resting today for preparation for his swim on Thursday. Marianne, would you like to say anything? Wish Mr. Ferris luck? Oh,
thank you,
okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Jerry, when did you get the idea of, swimming the lake?
Last July 9th, we were at Walt Williams' house having a little birthday party down there, and decided it was time to get back in shape, so I thought we'd set some goals. The goal was to swim Lake George.
Well, I wish you luck.
Thank you.
And you're starting on Thursday,
That'd be the 11th, and
11th.
Hopefully I'll finish within 24 hours down at Lake George Village.
Okay, well, maybe we'll be down there and get you when you finish.
Looking forward to seeing you down there.
Okay, thank you.
The point that you're looking at right now is Montcalm Point. It's the end of Tongue Mountain. I should be reaching that location someplace around 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning. As we sweep south from here, we come to what they call Shelving Rock, which is a dome that I can see quite clearly from the water, and I'll be just about underneath that as I go south. From there, we head out over through the open water again. Keep going south. There's a good span there of 2 miles, and then you come into Crown Island. At Crown Island, I'll be well east of that. And next you'll be picking up Dome Island, which is evident from its shape. I will be approximately 300 to 400 feet to the east of that, and from there I'll be able to see Long Island and Canoe Island, which is approximately 7 miles from Dome Island. From Canoe Island, I'll be able to see the beach and should be pretty excited about getting down there. Hopefully, that'll be our completion.
Thank you. I'm down here in Bolton Landing now at Mr. Neshaw's house, and I'd like to ask him a few questions about tomorrow's swim and also some of the history of the swimmers of Lake George. What's the first swimmer or the first race that you remember, Mr. Neshaw?
Well, in 1927, I remember at that time I was down working on Wall Street, but I remember Jack Dempsey coming up to pretty much start the race off at Hague. And of course the question arose later on in years that in swimming from Hague to Lake George was not actually what you would call swimming the length of Lake George.
Right. Yeah.
Lake George is 32 miles long, and however, you cannot negotiate Lake George in less than 41 miles because of the contour.
Oh.
We draw straight lines as straight as possible between 3 different points. It was finally finished and won by a young lad out of New York City by the name of Ed Keating. At that time, he was only 23, but he was a lifeguard and a professional swimmer also.
And what was
the first swimmer to negotiate the lake, which had never been done, and never accomplished by man or woman, was Diane Struble. Now, Diane accomplished that swim in perfect conditions. We had moonlight at night. We had an absolutely calm water from beginning to end, and it took her 35.5 hours. And I make special mention of that because of the fact that we weren't trying to establish a time record there, and many of the swimmers after that, 5 in all, tried to claim that they had beaten her record. Well, she never set out in the first place to set a time element. The thing was to finish the race, or the swim rather, then it wasn't a question of time element.
You were in the boat with her?
Complete, and she was the first one. Now the next swimmer completed it, Stevens, in 29.5 hours and tried to claim a record. Well, that is not true, and I want to emphasize that. After that, we had, resorting to a memory here, or a memo I have here, came the Marine, Bill Stevens, and he was the one that tried to claim a record. And then, of course, we had Stella Taylor. Now, Stella Taylor is an international swimmer and a professional. And she has swum the English Channel 3 times. The night that we took her through, however, we had just the opposite of Diane. We had severe winds, severe rain. There were times we didn't know within 5 miles of where we actually were. There was such a fog and a condition that we couldn't see the tops of the mountains or even the islands. And if it wasn't for the sheriff's boat, having had a compass on board, even he would have had difficulty. He'd go ahead about 1.5 to 2 miles so that we could see the red light on his boat, and that was the only way that we could negotiate.
She
so
completed?
While we know the lake pretty well, those conditions doesn't mean you know the lake.
Yeah.
After that, we had John Freihopper. Now, John is a lifeguard at Atlantic City for the past 4 or 5 years, and he's a real pro. And while talking about John, Jerry Ferris, who is now going to do the swim, reminds me very, very much of John Freihopper physically, and his intense desire to finish the swim. And as I said before, I think that the weather conditions, the report now, look for rain tomorrow late in the afternoon when we start at 4 o'clock and on through the night, Thursday night, and possibly right on into Friday when we should be coming in. So it makes a big difference in the swimmer's ability because of the loss of the heat of the sun. While we will cover him with lanolin and Vaseline to keep the heat in his body, he's going to have to swim 4.5 hours through the Narrows, which we have all the swimmers do, so they keep circulation, because that is from midnight until, say, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning before we get the sun again.
Oh, I see.
So these swimmers go through a chill there, and of course that immediate area of the lake is just constant springs coming up with cold water.
Yeah.
So we can't let the swimmer relax to the point where he is going to have chills brought upon himself.
I see.
So we keep them swimming full time. I feel very confident, and Jerry has everything. He's trained hard for this. He'll be a disappointed man if he doesn't make it, but the weather conditions are going to have very, very much to do, regardless of what his ability might be. We have a beacon on Prospect Mountain in Lake George, and we can see that very clearly at night. But if we have rain and fog, we'll be without that. We have to rely on the boats ahead and our knowledge of the mountaintops and the islands themselves, so that we keep our bearings. And then, of course, in the event, the other problem would be if we got severe winds, we would have to change our course and vary accordingly. We might have to go down the east side if it's a northeast wind or an east wind, which is expected. If it's a northwest wind, it'll favor us. We'll come in ahead of schedule. If it turns into a south wind, then we have a problem. It'll be, the swimmer will have to buck that kind of a wind, and it retards them anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 hours. Nobody knows until we reach those conditions.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think you mentioned it before.
Well, we came up here in 1908 and had an Indian squaw helping my mother take care of the other brother and myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And you're going to...
So we do know the conditions on the lake pretty well, and it's called the Queen of American Lakes, but she can be a rough queen at times.
Yes.
Very rough.
The 43-year-old insurance salesman was about to become only the 3rd person in the last decade to complete the 41-mile swim. When he got out of the water, he was obviously fatigued, but not looking bad for a man who had just been swimming for a little more than a day. However, there were times when he almost gave up.
A couple of times this afternoon I thought about throwing it in. I said, the heck with it. And when we hit the well, I just told my wife up at Long Island. But fortunately, I had a friend come up from New York in marathon swim, and she jumped in the water and paced me, got me to get back on stride again.
But would he do it again?
No.
Okay. Everything's back to normal now. The lake is quiet. Jerry's going to get some rest. He's not going to swim home. He's going to ride. Joe Moskowitz, 13 News Tonight, Lake George.
Jerry is obviously a smart man tonight, but I don't know. Who would go swimming in weather like this with all the rain?
Well, it's interesting because the weather has been so abnormally cold. Jerry probably felt pretty comfortable in the water because the water was warmer than the air.
Well, warming up is what a lot of us are wanting to do for tomorrow. I know that much, Herb.
Well, it's going to start in that direction. Tomorrow is going to be warmer.
And as a matter of fact, this lasted it on us.
Ferris came to an end just about 2 hours ago when the insurance broker completed his 41-mile effort to conquer the Queen of Lakes. Ferris made the swim to raise money for the American Cancer Society. It took him several more hours than he had planned on. He started off yesterday afternoon loaded down with several pounds of jelly to protect himself from the cold. And despite the rain and the cold, Ferris is reported in good shape. He will not be hospitalized, just warmed up and rested after his ordeal.
And congratulations are also in order this evening for one of the behind-the-scenes employees here at WRTV.
Joe Zalesny from Saratoga Springs successfully completed his swim of Lake George tonight after 29 hours in the water. Jerry Ferris completed the 41-mile swim and earned the distinction of being the oldest one to try it in recent memory. We'll be back in a moment.